Hey there, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me today on the show. Right off the top, going to tell you this is something different. We've been talking about it all week on Fantasy Sports Daily. Normally, we're on 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the morning, Monday through Friday for Fantasy Sports Daily. As you can tell by looking at me now with the sun blinding in my eyes, it's not that time in the morning. We're recording this Thursday night. I'm not going to be available on Friday during the normal hours of the show. Got to take my car in for service, so I'll be out of the office for the morning. Wanted to get this out, though, get it up and available. So you'll be able to find it where you're seeing it now, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. Over on the website, fantasyguru.com. You click the Elite Plus tab at the top, and you're off and rocking and rolling there. I don't think we'll be on Facebook today. This is the one time I can't really get Facebook, I don't think, to post this, but normally you can find the account, facebook.com/fantasy or /fantasyguruhq. You can find us there and also on Twitter X as well. So the show will be up at fantasyguru.com. Obviously, you can find us as well. Search Fantasy Sports Daily in your app for your podcast network, and then over on the YouTube account as well. What are we talking about today? Well, because it's a different show, we're going to do this totally differently. Not only do I have a scene behind me from back in the 1800s with baseball, we've got a different show plan tonight. We're going to do things completely differently because I won't be here after all the game action to review everything on Friday like we normally do the day before. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have Russell Clay joining us here in a few moments. We're going to change up the order. Russell's been nice enough to join us here to help out and do his visit. For those people that have forgotten, Armando Marsaul is going to be on every Wednesday now. Tyler Beaker is going to be on every Thursday, and Russell Clay on every Friday. So Russell's schedule was such that he wanted to be on a little bit earlier. Perfect. We'll have him on. We'll talk some football. We'll continue and finalize our discussion of the quarterback position. Remember, next week we'll talk running backs. The week after that, we'll talk wide receivers. The week after that, we'll talk tight ends. And then we're going to do something a little different with, again, how we're going to analyze the situation. As you can see there on the screen, we're going to basically look at all the games that happened, and I'm just going to randomly pick out things that happened that are worth talking about for a bit about each of the evening games. I just got done with the Elite Sports Show Game Time. That's on the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio from 8 to 10 Eastern, Monday through Thursday. So we just got done there. So I got a couple things to talk about. We had Nolan Gorman hit a couple of bets in that one. We didn't have Rafael Devers hit his bet. He had a run and a hit, but we had the total base prop. He only had a single, so he didn't hit that. But you can always, and again, we did it too on Nolan Gorman. Base hit for Nolan Gorman, and then a hit, run, RBI prop as well. He scored after his base hit. So we hit 2 for 3 tonight. I think we're 2 for 3 again on Wednesday night as well. So having some success there. So you want to be part of the Fantasy Guru crew on the wagering or the DFS side, just click the subscribe now tab in the top right corner of the page. You can get access to all of that. Any of the sports too, not just obviously baseball, but any of the sports are available over at the site. We're also then after, I'll talk a little bit about the all-time draft we're doing at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Justin Fenster and myself have a team. We'll look at the first couple of rounds of the all-time fantasy draft. How do you put together the best fantasy crew of all time? Well, we'll talk about it. We'll see how Justin and I are doing here through the first 5 rounds of our draft at the end of the show. Remember, it's exciting. Why is it exciting? Because it's football time. The NFL package is live over at fantasyguru.com. No need for a promo code. You just go to the website. There's already been the discount applied there. You just click on the subscribe now tab at the top right. You can see the link there on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, and get signed up. And when you get signed up there, you get access to so many great things at fantasyguru.com. It's a lot. Rookie player profiles, coaching system breakdowns, offensive line breakdowns, a mock draft simulator if you want to go through that, custom scoring cheat sheets, auction draft books. Russell Clay is coming up here in a second. He's got one of those that'll be coming down. IDP rankings, cheat sheets, sleepers in the IDP side of things if you're playing that market. A super flex chart or 2 QB flex chart for those of you looking to, how do I figure that out? 24/7 live stream. You get access to all that as well. You also get access to the weekly live stream that Russell Clay is on. That's every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern. So you can see the link on the screen. You can click on that or just go to fantasyguru.com, click on the subscribe now tab at the top right, subscribe tab at the top right of the page, and have at it. Great product. Again, Armando was on Wednesday. Tyler was on Thursday. And now we're going to go to our next guest who's going to be on every Friday, but he's doing you and more directly me a solid by coming on Thursday evening. It's Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. And Russell, I spilled the beans and told everyone this is being recorded, so we don't need to play a game like it's Friday morning. But I do want to thank you because obviously you didn't have to come on. This is completely different than a morning visit. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Me and Norm are ready to go and ready to talk some football. And yeah, as you mentioned, tomorrow is going to be a pretty exciting day for us as we have a whole next wave of things coming out for our draft guide. So
I know that we had Tyler Beaker on Thursday morning, and he talked about the best ball section kind of being dropped. What else is available that folks should be excited about?
So some of the content's already out, but the guide to dynasty leagues is going to be out tomorrow as well. So that's going to be our profiles, as you mentioned, and some other good dynasty stuff, how to set up your league, basic dynasty stuff, the more advanced dynasty stuff. And yeah, we're getting it moving here.
Pretty exciting, isn't it? Yeah, it's that time of year. It's like a lot of the time, I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? I'm the multi-sport guy. I'm always doing like one sport ahead. There's the actual background that I should have had up earlier for you. You're basically football all the time. So this is, you're working on this year round. I know you're always updating the dynasty rankings. You're always in Discord and all that. But it's got to be pretty exciting to really see it get going, because I know the feeling after you spend months really diving in to finally start sharing that with the people is pretty exciting.
Very exciting. And, throughout the off season, we have a Discord that is bumping towards the draft and into the off season just for dynasty startups and trades and all that good stuff. But having the content down on the homepage is nice to have.
It is. And what's also nice to have is you here with your ability to break down, especially the youngsters. Again, you're a dynasty guy, but you're a football guy. It's not all you do, of course. Today and this week has been quarterback week. And I know we've talked about some of these players previously, Russell, but I just want to get some further thoughts in case people are new to this or they're just starting to sit down and really start to look at the 2024 season. Let's go through some of the youngsters, kind of where they landed and what your expectations are, not for the long term, but just for 2024 with the visit today. Let's start out with Caleb Williams, who is the number one pick in a lot of rookie drafts, the number one pick in the NFL. He goes to the Bears. Bears didn't necessarily give a ton of weapons to Justin Fields. They've given a ton to Caleb Williams. How does Caleb Williams profile in his first NFL season to you?
Yeah, I think we all look at this as Justin Fields sacrificed him. He jumped on the grenade, and we all saw what a disaster it was to have Darnell Mooney as your number one wide receiver in an NFL offense. Now we come into it this year. They not only have Keenan Allen as the safety valve, they have DJ Moore, who can do so much after the catch, and they have Rome Odunze as a wild card. They have the 8th pick on a wide receiver, and he's just a wild card. So I was thinking about this today when I saw the show sheet, and I can't think of a rookie quarterback that is going to have a higher floor in their rookie year. I mean, I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to have a high floor in his rookie year. We all saw how that was over before it started because of Urban Meyer. But I can't think of a rookie quarterback walking into a better situation. So even if Caleb Williams isn't good, fantasy-wise, I'm very confident in that floor.
By the way, Norman sat up when you started talking about Caleb Williams.
Oh, really?
And as you were discussing, he sat back down. But I think he's a fan, too, of Caleb Williams. Maybe needs a Bears jersey or something for the little guy. He's still sitting back there. He's rocking it with us. Caleb Williams is athletic, but I don't think he necessarily compares to Jayden Daniels in terms of overall athleticism and the excitement that the wheels portion of Daniels' games brings to the field. He's going to the team in Washington. Like, apparently the fans don't even like the name they have. So I'll just say the team in Washington. Remember Washington football team? That was always fun. He's going to theoretically battle Marcus Mariota, but everyone's expecting him to be under center, I think, in week 1 at this point. Jayden Daniels, talk to us about his skill set and your expectations in his rookie season.
So before the draft, before everything, we did our prospect profiles, and I did Jayden Daniels. And heading into the process, I liked Jayden Daniels, but didn't love him. And one of the main things I noticed watching these games and breaking them down for college football DFS, every game was a sweat with him because he would run and he'd have these amazing plays, but he'd also throw his body at the opposing defenses. And in college, you can kind of get away with that. I did end up comping him to Mariota and Robert Griffin before I knew the destination. He ended up going number 2 overall. And so he is that exact archetype. And we saw, we think of Marcus Mariota as the guy that was like a shell of himself on the Falcons, or the guy at the end of his Titans career. Early Mariota was a very good fantasy quarterback. And we all know early RG3 was immense.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think there's a high ceiling there. But again, could we get into week 6 and he's on IR? Definitely. So we're playing that game. I think he has pretty good weapons as well. So yeah, we're in a weird space with Daniels, but year 1, I do like him.
Norman doesn't like him. Norman left. So he's more of a Caleb Williams. He's Caleb Williams kitten. In my dynasty league, that I'm in, it's a 16-team league, 50 roster spots, full IDP, the whole thing. I have Justin Fields and Daniel Jones thinking I'm set at the quarterback position, and wow, things changed quickly for me this offseason. So I drafted Drake Maye in the 2nd round. And whether he starts in week 1 or not is up in the air. They did bring in Jacoby Brissett, did the Patriots. But obviously Maye is the quarterback of the future. This team is in flux, changing coaching staff, all that kind of stuff. The receiving core doesn't look overly potent. I've even seen some people predicting that Hunter Henry might lead this team in catches from the tight end position. So talk to us about Derek Maye, and under what scenario does he get drafted? Does it have to be a 2 QB league in 2024? Like, what are we thinking with his outlook this season?
I am not running to the board to put the little sticker of Drake Maye on my season-long draft board. So in terms of season-long leagues, unless it's a super flex or deeper format, I'm probably not going to be having much Drake Maye. I will say he has a lot of solid options. He just doesn't have any special options. You mentioned Hunter Henry. I think we all know what Hunter Henry can bring to the table at this point, which is a solid tight end, but nothing overly special. He has this Juju, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, who 2nd round pick, but I wasn't too high on him. They have this Javon Baker guy that Rich Mileto really likes. And they have KJ Osborne, who's another one of those guys where you're like, all right, yeah, if he's out there. So that's where we're at with Drake Maye. I have to see how training camp goes. Do I think he can be solid? Yes. I think the one wild card for him is the rushing. He is bigger and he was pretty athletic as a runner in college. So if they scheme up some Josh Allen plays, maybe there's some rushing upside there. But year 1, I'm imagining it's going to be pretty rocky in that division with those defenses. So
Ray Flowers and Russell Clay here on Fantasy Sports Daily for FantasyGuru.com. You can follow Russell on Twitter X at Russell J. Clay. You can follow him over there. And he does a lot of those tweets that I like about looking at data and look at the last 3 years here. Let's comp this guy, that guy. That's the kind of stuff I like. So I always enjoy when you do that, Russell. Are we going to enjoy Bo Nix this year? He goes to a scenario in Denver where Sean Payton knows what he wants to do. He didn't want Russell Wilson doing it. He drafted Bo Nix to do it. There's been obviously a lot of loose comps to Drew Brees. What are your expectations for the rookie in Denver in year 1?
The comp to Sean Payton picked a quarterback, I'm in. And do I think Sean Payton can ring the absolute ceiling out of Bo Nix? I do. I do think he's going to end up being a starter for multiple years in the NFL. And, that's not as much of a guarantee for these quarterbacks anymore. We've seen with some of these draft classes, Trey Lance, there's just so many guys. Kenny Pickett lasted a year and a half, basically. So a lot of these rookie deals are not guaranteed starters. So long-term, I think you're getting a starter for multiple seasons. With that said, ceiling is not very high. And when I look at Russell Wilson's last couple years, there's 2 scenarios here. Either he is absolutely cooked and he's going to last maybe a year or maybe a month with the Steelers, and then Justin Fields will be starting, or it was a combination of him not being at his best anymore and that supporting cast being really bad. And beyond Cortland Sutton, I think there's a fair argument to say that was not a great supporting cast. So Bo Nix may be struggling to really get explosive plays. I like Marvin Mims, but beyond that and Sutton, I don't see much fantasy upside for this. So Bo Nix, he can stay on the waiver wire until we see something as well.
And by the way, Marvin Mims just taken by Russell Clay in the 13th round of the Host League draft, which will be, I think, available on Friday, if not Friday, Saturday over at fantasyguru.com. So he's putting his money where his mouth is right there, taking Mr. Mims. That's it for the rookies, except for one final guy. JJ McCarthy with the Vikings. Justin Jefferson just got the big contract. Obviously, Jordan Addison stepped forward last year when there was a need. TJ Hawkinson's not expected to be ready for week 1, but he's obviously a huge weapon. They added Aaron Jones in the backfield. Talk to us about JJ McCarthy in 2024. And is it possible that, he leads his team and starts by a large amount? Or is it possible Sam Darnold plays more than we think?
So whoever is starting in Minnesota is going to have a great situation. I'm going to bring up an obscure reference here, Ray, but I think you'll follow me. Remember when I think it was Byron Leftwich or Ben Roethlisberger in college where they were carrying him down the field? I forget which one it was. It was one of those big, bulky guys from the 2000s. And that's how I feel the Vikings are going to handle this quarterback situation this year. They are just going to carry Justin Jefferson. You don't have to be, I could probably, well, no, I couldn't, but some college quarterback with a strong arm could probably get it to Justin Jefferson, 100 times a year. Right. And I think JJ McCarthy, I was kind of a hater in the pre-draft process, but in this situation, it's pretty hard to deny if he does start, like you mentioned, Sam Darnold, a year under Kyle Shanahan, there's been points where you could be optimistic, and if he's getting carried by, halfway through the year, TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson and Addison, I'm interested, but yeah, overall, probably a limited upside, platoon approach for quarterback this year for the Vikings.
What about Bryce Young in year 2? Year 1 was a disaster. Okay, we can all talk about it, but year 2 has got to be something different, or he's going down the Kenny Pickett road, right? Like he's got to do this quickly. They brought in Jonathan Brooks. They brought in Xavier Legette, who I know you're not a huge fan of necessarily. They brought in Deontay Johnson. I mean, so there's more weapons here than there were last year. I think that's safe to say. Who is Bryce Young going to be this year? Is he usable in the 2 QB league? Do you have zero interest? Did you see anything last year that leads you to think he can take a significant step in year 2?
Yeah, this is the tag sale shopping, and you see, a solid board game from the 60s, and you're like, well, all right, let's go check eBay when I get home. I'll pay $10 for this. And I'm buying on Superflex 2QB and Dynasty. I am not overly optimistic about Bryce Young long-term, but like you mentioned, they've done a lot to surround him with some better weapons. So I'm more curious than I was last year. I was totally out. I think they have pretty good weapons for him this year. So fantasy-wise, I could see him landing in that QB 15 to 20 range if he stays healthy.
Russell, is Gabe Davis going to do it for your man? Is this the year for Trevor Lawrence? Look, to be fair, okay, he's been fine. He really has been fine. And historically speaking, if you're throwing, as historically speaking, not the last 8 years, but 30 years ago, if you had 2 20-touchdown seasons in 2 of your first 3 years, it's not bad, right? Guys threw picks. Joe Namath had more picks than touchdown passes. Like, he's in the Hall of Fame. Okay. It has not been to the level of expectations, but he has gone for 4,000 yards and 20 touchdowns each of the last 2 years. He's athletic. He can use his legs, all that kind of stuff. What do we get this year? Is on it? And I'm not trying to, is this the year it happens? Is it not going to happen? What do you think with Trevor Lawrence?
My Trevor Lawrence truth or take is it kind of happened at the end of year 2. That's my take. He ended up like a top 8 fantasy quarterback in 2 years ago. However, he needs support. he's not going to be a Patrick Mahomes like guy where he can just do it with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Kadarius Toney fumbling. Like
Right.
Pat Mahomes, that's a one and done deal. But if Gabe Davis can be a solid deep threat, and Brian Thomas is the guy I'm really hinging this on this year, they're clearly setting it up like the Clemson offense he had, where he had those big outside receivers that he could throw it up to. And then he has Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram in the middle. So there's definitely no excuses anymore. He has a good supporting cast at this point. I do think it happens, but to what degree fantasy-wise, unclear. And he has to stay healthy. He's been really banged up. And one of the big reasons why he really struggled towards the end of last year is he took some huge hits, put himself at risk. I'd really like to see him, take less risk, even if it means less running this year. He put himself in some bad spots, running out of the pocket and running down the field. So we'll see.
I don't know as much about football as you do. I think that's fair to say. I do know that when you're a quarterback, if you throw every pass off your back foot, you're not doing it right. Aaron Rodgers has done this for years, and it's worked. So there's always that tendency. Well, Aaron Rodgers, one guy has done it. Okay, no coach is ever going to tell you to throw off your back foot and not drive into the ball, aim your shoulder, through the receiver. Jordan Love apparently looked at a lot of film of Aaron Rodgers because he threw everything off his back foot. Now, Jeff Mans talked a lot about it last year, and his supposition was that was on purpose because the team realized, the way his mechanics were going, the way he wasn't driving the ball, that the only way he could be accurate was to do that. So that's my concern with Jordan Love. Statistically speaking, he was really good last season. What are your thoughts on him this year? And statistically, does he repeat 4,100 yards and 30 touchdowns? Because that's a pretty big season, Russell.
So one of the things Jeff Mans has been talking about, and I've actually done the coaching pod with him a few times, and I think that stuff is finally seeping into me because I was like a players first, just draft them and they'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. His system is so good. The coaching is so good there, and they're consistently bringing in players that fit that system. And Jaden Reed year 2, they have Christian Watson back. Romeo Doubs looks like he has pretty good chemistry as an outside guy. This is like year 4 or 5 in that system, and year 2 or 3 with most of these players. It's going to be a more competitive division this year, but I thought he showed enough to where I trust that he's not a fraud. And that's enough for me to, like you said, and we've seen this with all quarterbacks, whether it's Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning or even Aaron Rodgers, they go through ebbs and flows in the stats, touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford was a great example of this. He had those 5,040 yard or 40 touchdown seasons. And then he had a season directly after that was like 23 touchdowns. So the touchdowns are going to fluctuate, but Jordan Love, high floor guy with a great system.
Final guy to ask you about, Russell, and this is a player who a year ago we were really nervous about his health, went out and played every game last year. Because he played every game last year, he threw for 4,600 yards and 29 touchdowns. His production on a per-game basis was actually pretty similar to the year before. Wasn't that different. It's just that he played 4 more games. It's Tua Tagovailoa, who's going to be getting a contract extension at some point here for $1 gazillion. Are we over the concerns about his health? Is it fair to have concerns about the health with a quarterback in the NFL anyway? I think that's probably a good question to start with. But are you confident that he can replicate the numbers he had last season? Because they still got Achane, they still got Mostert, they drafted right, they've got Hill and Waddle, they brought in Beckham, they drafted Malik Washington. Like, the weapons are there, the system we were just talking about, that's all there. Tua in for a repeat of last season. What do you think?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because when we talk about injury prone, there's no guy that is closer to one hit retiring him than Tua. And just because he stayed healthy for a year doesn't mean that's gone. Those concussions were pretty horrific when they happened. Clearly, he made some changes that kept him upright almost the entire season. Fantasy-wise, I'm done doubting Tyreek Hill. If he's 37 years old, I'm going to be like, all right, well, whatever. He's still filthy. The rest of these guys, Jalen Waddle, if he can stay on the field, you mentioned all the speed they have there. Mike McDaniel knows what he's doing. I trust him. And that's more so what it is than Tua, actually. But yeah, I mean, that's still very real. And I think we've all forgotten about that because he had a healthy year, but one hit away for sure. One bad snap away. So that is real.
But broader picture, last question before I let you go. Last year was a mess for the quarterbacks. It was a mess for the quarterbacks all across the league. Is that a one-off? Did something change in defenses and offenses, spreading the field, where they're more, anything to explain it? Or are you looking at it more as a one-off and you're not saying, hey, everyone's got to draft 2 quarterbacks this year because look what happened last year?
We are going to see a strong increase in quarterback production this year. I'm very confident in that. The last few quarterback classes have basically been thrown to the wolves. We finally have a base of young quarterbacks ready for the next generation, which we hadn't had. We had Tom Brady retiring. We had all these old guys retiring and nobody to replace them. We finally do. We also have guys, coming into good situations, as mentioned with Caleb Williams. So I'm feeling pretty good. We also have, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles last year. Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles last year. They're both going to be back. This is going to be a nice swing back to quarterback production.
Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com, as he noted there, Friday's a big day. Lots of things getting released. We'll basically have something released most days now until the season begins with the crew over at fantasyguru.com. Russell will be heavily involved. He is our guy at the website. If you go look at the Dynasty rankings, they are his. So if they're great, they're his. If they're bad, they're still his.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't blame Jeff Mans. I see y'all in there blaming Jeff. No, blame me.
Russ is in the Discord every day answering questions, especially in that Dynasty room. So sign up at the website, click the subscribe tab at the top right corner of the page, get involved. The articles, there'll be the live stream that Russell's on every Tuesday at 7:00 Eastern time. The articles, the Discord, there'll be a series of podcasts. We'll have all that kind of stuff. And Russell will be right in the middle of it. And I want to thank you again so much for coming on here on a Thursday night, totally out of schedule for normal. Really appreciated it. I think the listeners enjoyed the visit too. And thank you so much, Russell. I appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, I don't want to break the third wall, but car stuff's got to take care of the stuff,
it's one of those things you played in your head. It's like, do I take an Uber back and forth? Do I have my lady take me back? And it's like, do I want to spend an hour and 20 minutes in the car? It's like,
no.
How much do I actually gain? And then I'm trying to think, can I do the show from the dealership? It's like, well, I could, but what if the Wi-Fi, right? It's like, so
yeah,
it's just, this was the best way to do it and make sure it worked. And again, I might've done it different if you weren't available. So the folks have you to thank for there being a show.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Ray.
You got it. And we'll talk to you again on Friday next week. All right. That's Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. Thank you so much, my friend. All right, so the rest of the show here, we're talking baseball. Again, I want to thank Russell for stopping in. Normally, we'll have Armando on Wednesdays, Tyler on Thursdays, Russell on Fridays. They'll all visit us half an hour into the show. Again, it was different today because of just the way that Russell's, again, gracious enough to visit with us. So I said, you pick the time, buddy, and we're off and rocking and rolling. Let's talk some baseball here. Let's get my face back to normal size. There we go. All right, how about that? I had to move, so if you were noticing, my face was getting blown out by the light through the window because I'm not used to doing evening shows. I've got French doors right here, and the sun's getting us, so I'm a little bit further back, but it actually works pretty well here the way it's framed with the page there. So we'll go with that. What I want to do is, because I can't get through in-depth wise like we normally do, we don't have all the reports and everything like that, and I'm doing a show here while game action is going on. I thought that it'd be different and kind of fun and cool to just go look at some games. So let's go through the games in order that I have them there. And I don't have any notes. Again, I was doing the Elite Sports Game Time show Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10 Eastern on Sirius XM. I was doing that right before I jumped on here. So I haven't had any time to look at anything. We're looking at this all together. I might miss an injury or something like that because, again, I'm looking at box scores. I'm not watching the ticker or anything like that. But jumping into this Dodger-Pirates game, I talked about this earlier today, I think, it was on this show. It's all blending together. Let's just start fresh. Dodgers won this game 11-7. From a fantasy perspective, O'Neal Cruz, who was in the cash game breakdown today at fantasyguru.com, He went 2 for 5, a couple of runs scored, 3 RBIs. He hit a home run. It was like 117.7 miles an hour. It was 462 feet. It was an absolute bomb for O'Neal Cruz. 3 base hits for Brian Hayes tonight. Nick Gonzalez continuing to hit. He had a couple of hits, a couple of RBIs. He also went deep. He continues to be a very impressive middle infield performer for the Pirates since he was recalled from the minors. Mookie Betts broke out of a slump. He went 2 for 3 with the home run tonight. A couple of RBIs. He walked twice. Had someone ask me in Discord, what the hell's wrong with Ohtani? He struck out 3 times. Yeah, he had a bad game. He struck out 3 times tonight. One for 6 with a run scored. Home run for Freddie Freeman. Teoscar Hernandez also went deep. One of the bigger storylines here is what happened on the hill. Walker Buehler, 3 innings, 4 runs, 3 of them earned. There were a couple of balls that could have been grabbed that just were out of reach of defenders. There was a couple of errors behind them. 78 pitches to get through the 3 innings, another middling effort. He's basically been pretty much league average since he's returned from injury, from the Tommy John surgery and the long delay. He's still kind of searching for it. It's weird to say this, but he's not a must start at this point. Is he a probably start? Yeah. But again, he's had a real hard time going deep into games, and he's just not sharp. And that's not overly surprising given everything he's gone through. Disappointing, but it's not overly surprising. Let's go to the Atlanta-Washington game. And it's going to take me a second to find these because they're all out of order because I'm looking at a scoreboard here. The Braves won this game 5-2. There was a 442-foot home run by Marcelo Zuna, who had a couple of hits, a couple of RBIs, a couple of runs scored. He's now up to 18 home runs. He's got 55 RBIs in 60 games played. He's batting 300 with 1,000 OPS. He has been, since May of last year, the best right-handed power hitter in baseball. I know. He's right up there, man. Guys getting hurt, guys not playing, and he just goes out there and get it. He's been terrific. Adam Duvall went deep tonight. He's really struggled trying to take over in the outfield, ostensibly replacing Ronald Acuna. That is not what he can or will do, but that's what he's trying to do. He had a home run tonight, a couple of RBIs, hitting 195 with a 381 slugging percentage. He's got to get going. Jared Kelnick's dealing with a little bit of a health issue. The Braves are likely to be making a trade here, I would have to assume, at some point soon for an outfielder. Whether or not Duvall is able to stay in the lineup will depend greatly upon his at-bats here in short order because they got to do something there to get that going. Looking at the rest of the lineup tonight, there really wasn't much excitement between those two guys. Austin Riley went 1 for 4 with a run scored. That's an RBI. He didn't do much of anything. On the other side of things, CJ Abrams had a home run, a solo shot. He struck out twice, only went 1 for 4. He struggled since that hot start. Lane Thomas also had a solo home run. So both those guys, the 1 and 2 hitters, going deep, each of them. Jesse Winker had a couple of RBIs. The rest of the lineup basically did nothing. Reynaldo Lopez had yet another quality start. Yet another game, despite a good effort, where he didn't pick up a victory. 2 runs allowed in his 6 innings tonight. He walked 1, struck out 7. He has now lowered his ERA to 1.85, and he's got 3 victories for a team that's 10 games over 500. So he's pitching great, even though it's not resulting in victories for him personally. Raisel Iglesias has picked up his 16th save of the season. On the other side of things, Hunter Harvey had his worst game of the year, gave up 3 runs. He actually picked up the loss, falling in Mitchell Parker's, who actually went out there and pitched fantastically. Only had 2 strikeouts through 7 innings of work. Was pulled at 71 pitches. They didn't want him to see the whole Braves lineup to see him again. I get it. But 2 runs in the 7 innings, 3 hits, no walks, Pitched great. A very difficult matchup. And we're getting close to the point where I'm going to have to do a mea culpa on Mr. Parker because he is not someone I said anyone should really be interested in. And he continues to pitch very well, punctuated by another good effort yet again this evening. Minnesota and the Yankees. Let's take a look at that game. It might still be going on. It is still going on. Twins coming back a little bit in this one. Yankees are up 8-5 as we're sitting here right now. I think that if we focus on the pitching, big storyline, Marcus Stroman allowed 2 runs through 4 innings. The Twins got to him for 3 runs in the 5th. So he ends his night with only 2 strikeouts, 5 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. A really bad effort for a guy who was in the cash game breakdown over at fantasyguru.com on Thursday. Someone who was going 5 innings every time out, who wasn't allowing more than 2 runs basically every time out. A rough outing tonight against the Twins. But in comparison, it was a good game. Because on the other side of things, Pablo Lopez, yet again, bombs. Just bombed. He allowed 7 runs in 4 innings, and he walked 6 guys. He used 96 pitches to get 12 outs. And Justin Fensterman asked me on the Sirius XM show a couple hours ago, hour and a half ago, like from now when we're recording this, what's wrong with Pablo Lopez? And I said, look, if you peel back the onion here and you look at all the pieces with Lopez, the only thing that stands out as really stupid is the home run rate. And he gave up another home run tonight. His home run rate is like half a point per 9 innings above his career mark. It's just dumb. It's not going to continue, but he keeps giving up home runs. He wasn't walking anybody. He had exquisite control in terms of limiting the walk coming into this game. He walked 6 guys tonight. I did not see any reports suggesting he was injured. I don't think that's the case. I think that, with this effort now, his ERA is up to almost 5.5. I think Lopez is a decent buy low option in the fantasy space because his current team is going to be extremely upset, if not angry, and completely disappointed in his performance to date. And maybe you can get him for a discount because, again, he still seems healthy. He's still getting the strikeouts. He's still going to throw the innings. He's going to make the starts. And I think that there's a worm turning in a proper direction for Pablo Lopez moving forward. As we sit here today, Carlos Correa is 2 for 3 with a couple of RBIs and a home run. Christian Vasquez hit the other home run off of Marcus Stroman. On the Yankees side of things, Aaron Judge with a couple of runs, scored a couple of walks. Let's see. Juan Soto didn't do much. He walked a couple of times. A couple of RBIs for Gleyber Torres. Austin Wells, 1 for 2 with a couple of RBIs. 3 RBIs for Trent Grisham, who is on the Yankees. He had a home run, by the way. I think the storyline is, again, Gleyber Torres is last week starting to do some things, starting to produce a little bit. And the numbers are still bad, and he's still hitting down in the order and all of that. He's light years away from all of us expecting where we expected him to be. But he is, I think it's starting to happen. So if Gleyber Torres is on the waiver wire, I would recommend now being a good time to change that. If he's not on the waiver wire and you got him on your team, I think good things are going to start to happen. Maybe you'd make a play to get him on the cheap because I could really see a strong final push here the last 2/3 of the season or whatever officially it is. Starting to put some production up in that what could be a stacked Yankees lineup besides just the top 3 guys. Chicago and Cincinnati. This game was a victory for the Cincinnati Reds, 8-4. Hunter Green picked up that victory for the Reds. He went 6 2/3 innings, had 8 strikeouts. Okay, that works. Walked 2 guys. That works. Gave up 4 runs and 2 home runs. And, this continues let's be honest about this. What has been for Hunter Green, an okay start to his career. So much promise, so much talent, so many dominant efforts, and so many games where, it's like tonight. He goes deep in the game. He throws 111 pitches. He strikes more than a batter down an inning, and his ERA for the game is 4. And it's not a bad effort, and he got the victory. So we'll take that, especially after the efforts we just talked about in the Vikings, the Minnesota and Yankees game. And he pitched much better again than the guy on the other side. Javier Assad is someone that we've talked about a lot on the show. And we've talked about the fact that, I'm not a huge fan and I don't believe in this hot start. And I don't think you should either. I think the ratios are going to continue to go up. And it's not the worst idea in the world to consider moving on from him. He had an impressive 7 strikeouts tonight in his 5 2/3 innings. He also allowed a home run and 5 runs. So, again, the armor is starting to crack for Assad. He's been terrific. He didn't cost you anything. You probably picked him up on waiver wires unless you're in an only league. I don't think he was even drafted in mixed leagues. Maybe he was. Reserve rounds kind of thing, unless the league is very deep. But he's pitched very well. I'm a little concerned. Seiya Suzuki, who was in the cash game breakdown today, actually went deep. 2 for 4 with the home run, a couple of RBIs. Christopher Morel had a home run. He had a couple of RBIs. Morel continues to still be a confusing player in some respects. He's hitting 205. A lot of people are ticked off. Remember, his batting average of balls in play is way low, artificially low. It's like 75 points below his career mark, something like that. His strikeout rate is down like 7 or 8%, which is really good news because the strikeouts were the reason he was hitting 230. Now he's hitting 205, even though his strikeout rate is basically a little bit better than the league average. There is a run here coming for Morel. And we have seen this from him anyway, right? He has streaks in his career, but there's a run coming from him, and it could be an impressive one. So those are the 2 big guys offensively for the Cubs. Let's talk about the Colorado-St. Louis game. And in this one, I talked about this earlier, hit a couple of bets in this one on Nolan Gorman. On the Cardinal side of things, they only scored 2 runs in this loss. Mason Wynn continuing a strong run here. He's got his batting average up to 311. His on-base percentage is up to 360. He's got an OPS approaching 800. He's now batting leadoff a good deal of the time. he's been very impressive. He's got a back issue he's dealing with. Didn't bother him tonight. And I guess they're confident he's okay because he's been out there recently for the team. Again, Gorman was 1 for 4 with an RBI. We had a hit prop on him, hit that. We had a hit run RBI prop, hit that, even though he didn't have a big game. Nolan Arenado walked 3 times. That's kind of the highlight for the offense. There wasn't a lot going for the Cardinals. On the pitching side of things, Sonny Gray had a disappointing effort. 3 runs allowed in his 4 2/3 innings. Took him 89 pitches to get there. He also was in the cash game breakdown. The matchup was a great one. He's been basically going out and pitching 5 innings with 6 strikeouts every time he takes the hill. What does he do tonight? He gets 5 strikeouts. He doesn't go 5 innings, and he walks 4 guys. And that's just, things really went haywire for him in that final inning he was out there. And that's just not his game. Yeah, it's one of those games. It's one of those efforts. I don't think there's any long-term pull out here from Gray other than it was just a bad game. Unfortunately, it happened in the scenario against Colorado where we all anticipated him having success. And frankly, it's very disappointing that he didn't. Cal Quantrill yet again. I mean, how long can you hold your foot to the fire and not get burned? Cal Quantrill threw 5 shutout innings tonight against the Cardinals. He needed 96 pitches to get through 5 innings. He struck out 1 guy in 5 innings. He walked 4 guys. He did all of that and somehow didn't give up a run. I'm telling you, it's good now, and he's in a groove performance-wise in terms of run prevention. But 1 strikeout and 4 walks, and you throw 5 shutout innings. Cal Quantrill is getting lucky, folks, getting lucky. On the offensive side of things, Mr. Taglia, who's recently promoted with all the injuries, including Chris Bryant recently, he came up, had a hit and an RBI today. Charlie Blackmon had a hit and an RBI as well. A couple of run scores for Jake Cave, who's been playing an awful lot in the outfield because of the injuries. Nothing to get excited about there, but playing daily, you're in Colorado, we know what that can do for you. The Boston game against the White Sox, a bunch of Sox here. This was the losing bet, the Rafael Devers bet. It was over 1.5 total bases. He ended up with 1 total base, scored a run as well. Basically the biggest disappointment in the Red Sox lineup tonight. They got ahead. I think they pulled him out when they had like a 10-run lead. So he was pulled out early, didn't get a chance to get that final at bat or 2 even. You look at the lineup tonight, Jayden Daniels, who's the leadoff guy who was in the cash game breakdown. He was the 5th ranked outfielder today. He went 4 for 5 with a couple of runs, scored a couple of RBIs and a walk. So he reached base 5 times. One of those hits was a home run. He had an excellent game tonight. Rob Refsnyder, who's got a hard name to spell, and a guy whose game you don't really know, but had 3 hits again tonight. He's almost batting 350. Almost has a 350, 400, 550 slash line. Like, he's been fantastic, and he's batting 3rd in front of Rafael Devers. And he's playing all the time now because of what they're dealing with. So Refsnyder, long-term, no. But right now, he's blazing hot. Head-to-head leaguers, if you haven't noticed, Rob Refsnyder is someone to pick up. Tyler Neal returned to game action, went 2 for 3 with a couple of RBIs, really a couple of runs scored. Great to see him doing some nice things there. Let's see. David Hamilton had a couple of hits. Cedeno Rafaela went 4 for 6 with 4 RBIs. A great effort from him. Dominic Smith actually 3 for 5 with a run scored and 2 RBIs. So 14-2, the Reds beat the Whites in terms of Sox. Tanner Houck was pitching great. He ended up giving 2 runs in his 7 innings of work. Only allowed 3 hits. Didn't walk a single batter. Struck out 9. Pitched great today. He was the cash game breakdown core 4. I think it was on DraftKings today. So he pitched great. Woodford on the other side got bombed as expected. Hill came in and got bombed. Schuster came in and got bombed. Anderson came up and gave up a run. White Sox fall to 15-48, and I think that's their 14th straight loss, if I'm not mistaken. They are the definition of a straight dumpster fire. Finally, the Arizona game. Let's pull this one up. Arizona Padres game. This one is still going on as well. This is in just the 5th inning tonight. We had news earlier that Joe Musgrove, I did see this news. Joe Musgrove underwent an MRI that revealed a bone spur and a contusion in his right elbow. He's been obviously on the injured list. He received a PRP injection and a cortisone injection. He's going to start throwing in a couple of weeks. So the hope is that, he can make this work and maybe be back out there in a month. Now, the issue is when you have PRP, this is a serious thing, right? They're trying to promote healing with all of that. There has also been, obviously, because this is something that's lingering here now, there has been discussion about surgical intervention. As of now, surgery is not being considered. 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, if things don't improve, I have to consider it might be. So we're in a real danger zone with Joe Musgrove here. Fingers crossed that rehabilitation and rest, along with the work they're doing with him, will obviously make him feel better. Okay, more about the Padres. Vasquez has given up 3 runs and 4 innings of work. He's been kind of no good. Mr. Slade C. Ciccone of the Diamondbacks actually pitching very well. 4 shutout innings right now against the Padres. A couple of base hits for Fernando Tatis. He was also in the cash game breakdown. He's 2 for 2 tonight. No one else on his team is pulling their weight right now. Let's see. Manny Ramirez was not in the Manny Machado was not in the lineup tonight, dealing with some health issues. He's hopeful of returning back soon. Corbin Carroll, 2 for 3 with a run scored. Nice to see Corbin Carroll hitting first in the lineup and having some production. So that's moving in the right direction. Let's see. Eugenio Suarez is 1 for 2 with a run scored and an RBI. He's gone deep. He was actually in the cash game breakdown. I pulled him out. He was the 5th guy at third base. We only list 4. Well, who was in the cash game breakdown? His teammate Gabriel Moreno. He was also 1 for 2 at the point in time we're talking with the home run. So we at least got that one in our lineup. Corbin Carroll, we talked about earlier this week. Check it out over at fantasyguru.com. Click the Elite Plus tab at the top. It's youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. You can find that on YouTube. I'm trying to check something out here. One moment. Sorry about that. We're trying to coordinate here on a nighttime as it's 8 o'clock at night. I have work to do after this too because of the car thing tomorrow. So my significant other was asking me if she wanted me to bring dinner. Corbin Carroll, we broke him down earlier in the week. I want to say it was episode 156.7. So you can check that out. A real in-depth look at Corbin Carroll and his struggles and why he was indeed struggling. So check that out in a previous episode, this week. All right. Finally, before we shut things down here, I wanted to tell everybody about something we're doing. If you don't know, if you're on Twitter X, you can go to @SiriusXMFantasy on Twitter X. You can pull up the link there. It's a bookmark pinned to the top of the page. We're doing an all-time fantasy baseball draft at fantasyguru.com, and all the hosts on the shows are putting teams together. The players have to have played in the modern era, so it's 1901 on. It's a 5x5 setup. Okay, so traditional 5x5 scoring. We have 15 roster spots. A catcher, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, 3 outfielders, a UT. I think it's 3 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and a pitcher spot. So overall, we have 15 spots. This is defined as the greatest fantasy team of all time. It's not defined more than that. Some guys were drafted and they've had 18-year careers and they were always good, but never supremely excellent. Other guys have had shorter runs of excellence, but not as much duration. I don't know if we're supposed to be looking for the best 5 years of the guy's career, the best 3 years of their career, the best decade of their career. It's not defined. So the bottom line is you can put your team together any way you want. That's really what we got going on. Justin Fenster and myself have put a team together. And here's what we got so far. I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller here so you can get a good look at this thing. And there it is. No, that's not it. There we go. How about that? Go in the middle. There it is. So in round 1, we took Babe Ruth, followed by Ken Griffey Jr., Chris Bagwell, Chipper Jones, and then Joe Morgan. Hey, Ray, that team's not very good. Well, I think that team is actually excellent. That's why we drafted it. Remember, in the case of these players, we're talking about guys that need to be effective in a 5x5 scenario. All right. So we're not, and by the way, we're not justifying anything for era. So whether you played in 1910, 1950, 1968, 2002, we're just playing the fantasy game as if they're all the same, which again, we can debate whether that's valid or not, but that's what we're doing. So we start out with Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth for a 13-year period from 1920 to 1932, average season, and I'm rounding just to keep it easier because I'm talking. His average season for those 13 years was 355, 45, 135, 135, 10. Phenomenal. On the pitching side, because some people forget he's a pitcher. Well, we can use him as a pitcher, right? Just like Shohei Ohtani. Babe Ruth actually has 94 victories in his career. Ohtani only has 38. Ohtani hasn't even thrown 500 innings in the big leagues yet. Ruth was over 1,200. So Shohei Ohtani actually went first overall. We were very happy to take Babe Ruth, who, again, I think it's clearly a better hitter, right? Because he did it for so much longer, and his numbers in his era were great. And even if we don't consider the era, again, 350, 355, 45, 135, 135, 10. Ohtani's got him in steals, ain't got him no place else. So Babe Ruth was our first pick. Our second pick was Ken Griffey Jr. And this is a snake draft. There's 12 teams. So this is pick 23 for Ken Griffey Jr. Griffey was our second outfielder. Then we went Bagwell. Then we went Chipper Jones. So we got our outfielder, our first baseman, and our third baseman. All three of those guys basically were active and at their best from around 1990 to 2005, right? So all their careers overlap. They're playing against each other constantly. And if you look at a decade span for all three of those guys in that 1990 to 2005 range, it's a little earlier for Griffey. It's a little later for Chipper Jones. If you look at 10-year periods of time for all three of those guys in that 10-year period of time, all averaged for the decade, a 300 average, 35 home runs, 100 RBIs, 100 runs scored, and 15 steals. That's some banging work. And Jeff Bagwell, before you say, why would you take Jeff Bagwell third round? Jeff Bagwell had 2 seasons of 40-30. It's the only first baseman ever to do that. So if we're talking 5x5 value, you have a first baseman going 40-30. Yeah, that's why we took Jeff Bagwell. And again, Griffey, Bagwell, and Jones are more than just 10 years. They were better than longer than just 10 years. But in those 10 years, all three of those guys averaging 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, 100 runs scored, 15 steals, and hitting 300. That's damn good. And then we get to the case of Joe Morgan, who we just took in the 5th round. And you might all know Joe Morgan more as an announcer than as a player. You might have a memory of, oh, he was in the Big Red Machine back in the day or something like that. Yeah, that's all true. But Joe Morgan was a spectacular baseball player as well. And I think a lot of people might have forgotten that because it was in the 70s that he did this. From 72 to 77, so over a 6-year period of time, while playing second base, the 5'7", 160-pound Joe Morgan, the leader of the Big Red Machine, one of the greatest baseball teams of all time. In that 6-year period of time, Joe Morgan won an MVP award. He won a second MVP award. He finished 4th in the MVP voting. He finished 4th in the MVP voting. He finished 8th in the MVP voting. Okay. And actually, that's even more condensed because it's from 72 to 76 that happened. So in that 5-year period of time, he won 2 MVP awards. He was 2nd in MVP voting twice, or 4th in MVP voting twice, and 8th in the other year. So for a 5-year run, first, second, 8th in MVP voting. Let's add that extra year in the fantasy space. Let's go from 72 to 77. So that 6-year period of time for him. In that 6-year period of time, and remember, it's a 5x5 fantasy league, Joe Morgan average hitting 300 with 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, 110 runs scored, and 60 steals. 6-0. For a 6-year period of time, our second baseman, Joe Morgan, hit 300 while averaging 20 home runs and 60 steals. And oh, by the way, 80 plus RBIs, and oh, by the way, 110 plus runs scored. And if you're in an on-base percentage league, his career on-base percentage is like 430. Not that this has anything to do with this, but yeah. So I think this lineup, I mean, this is spectacular. We have arguably the greatest hitter in baseball history, the greatest player in baseball history, arguably in Babe Ruth, the greatest hitter of all time, given his era. There's no doubt about that. And again, his fantasy numbers are spectacular. Griffey, Bagwell, Jones, all Hall of Famers, all with elite 4-category production and 15 steals a year. And then we got Joe Morgan, who you can make the case behind Roger Hornsby might be the second best second baseman all time offensively, who's averaging 20-60 for a 6-year period of time. So I think we got a great crew. We'll continue to fill this out. The picks are being made offline. We're also making picks on the show. I would encourage everyone to listen to the shows on the network. Justin and I are on Monday through Thursday on Elite Sports Game Time from 8 to 10 Eastern. So you can check us out there making picks. You can also follow the draft on Twitter, X, at SiriusXM Fantasy. There's a whole spreadsheet. You can see it there at the bottom. I put it on there, but you can't read it. It's 5,000 characters. So I'll add a link to the description. So hopefully that'll help you out. But follow it along. Comment. You can leave questions in the Discord or comments over in the Discord at fantasyguru.com. Let me know what you think about our team, our thoughts. Just a fun exercise. And I thought you'd all enjoy seeing that there at least a little bit. As you can see behind me, we have the draft guide available, as I've been talking about here at fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe tab at the top right corner of the page. Sign up for the football product. We had Russell Clay on. And again, big thanks to Russell for joining us today. A night early on a Thursday evening for the Friday show. We'll be back normal live on Monday next week at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fantasy Sports Daily. Thanks for allowing me the ability to get my car fixed so that I can get to the beach on the weekends and have some fun and tune my brain off a little bit and enjoy myself. So thank you for that. Hope you enjoyed this special edition of Fantasy Sports Daily. I want to thank Russell Clay again for joining in. Hopefully you enjoyed everything here. Check us out at fantasyguru.com, Elite Plus tab at the top. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. We'll be back right here again on Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday for Fantasy Sports Daily. For Russell Clay, I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.